All right, people, let's have a look at this roll between Graham and Fab. Graham on the bottom here has a good frame across the hips, trying to get that left elbow on the inside, looking to turn on his hip. He's done a good job here of flattening that left leg on the mat in between Fab's ankles to make it possible for him to potentially grab that foot. But what's making it a little bit harder is this elbow being on the outside of the thigh slightly. So if it were on the inside, we'd have a little bit better ability to push Fab's knee down towards our hips a little bit more, and that makes it easier to grab that foot. And now you can see Fab really working on that crossface and that upper body control. Graham's kind of sacrificed some of that inside position here and has the hand on the outside, but times a very nice bridge and roll. So in general, we do want to keep our forearms across the hips there, but a bridge and roll is a very good thing to do. And bridging towards the side that our partner is cross-facing us on is probably a little bit less expected, because most of the time when we're getting underhooked, we want to bridge towards that direction so that if our partner posts with their hand, we'll be able to reclaim our underhook. But sometimes a nice switch up is to bridge the opposite direction. And straight away, you'll see Graham gets his head up and high, and we get our posture back. He's got hands in the chest framing away, and that's an important thing to think about when we're in close guard. We want to try and get our head away from our partner's head. So Fab's doing a really good job with these little prying style hooks in between Graham's ankles, which means that it's kind of compromising his base and starting to torque his hips a little bit here, which can be quite annoying. But Graham is doing a good job of kind of staying patient and in this spot not extending his legs and giving Fab an opportunity to upgrade grips. And you'll notice all the hand fighting that's going on. So both these guys were purple belts at the time of filming this, and you'll see that just the hand fighting is much more focused on with the higher belts than it is with the lower belts. So here, looking to step over into this half guard knee shield position, and now forcing Fab back down to the mat. Whenever we're in a half guard knee shield position, it is a good idea in general to use this right elbow over the back, just like Graham is doing now, with that elbow pulling back in towards his hips to prevent Fab from hip escaping the opposite direction and creating some more space. So we've done a good job at kind of collapsing that knee shield. Looks like we kind of have a crossface here, and Fab seems to be trying to attack that far leg of Graham's. And we're looking for a DAS, forcing our partner to put their head back and trying to get that left knee in towards the hip, so we have a good chance of consolidating some better passing positions here. And now we have this crossface on the head. Looks like Fab's doing a good job of trying to free his leg here, and Graham keeping his balance well, and then kind of moves back to this more square orientation. So in this position here, where Fab is trying to attack this far leg by linking his hands together around the back of Fab's knee, or first cross armpit posting on Graham's ribs or armpit there, and looking to connect his hands together. In this situation, a good idea for Graham is to try and cross his ankles. If he can cross his ankles, that's going to connect his legs and just add a little bit more stability to his base and prevent him from being off balanced, and that can be a good thing to do. So here with this reverse crossface grip, it's a very good grip to use when we're trying to pass a half guard knee shield, because it prevents our partner from choi barring us. If we were to use a normal crossface with our Graham's left hand underneath Fab's head, then that would leave Graham exposed to choi bars and attacks like that, which can then often lead to attacks on this secondary leg once we start posturing up and out of the choi bar attempts. So something to consider is using a reverse crossface or reverse collar tie instead of a normal collar tie. And you can see that Graham is doing a good job at trying to push this foot towards the butt of Fab, because if we can get the heel towards the butt, then we can start removing that knee shield. And if we were confident that our left leg in this case isn't being attacked, then we could switch to using this left hand as an overback grip, as a way of looking to force a chest-to-chest position. So again, good hand fighting here and nice posture, not rushing through these positions too much, just trying to see what's going on. And when we go for that leg weave, that's when Fab starts to recover the open guard. So I don't think that the leg weave is a particularly good pass in no gi because it's difficult for us to control our partner's posture. In the gi, we'd be able to use our left hand to grab the collar or lapel in front of our partner's chest and prevent them from posturing. But if we do look for a leg weave pass, trying to use our shoulder to keep Fab's knees pinched together, and again, this left hand as a reverse collar tie can be a good way of tripoding up, getting our knees up off the ground, then looking to pass from there. But Fab does a good job of getting to an open guard. And Graham is being persistent. You can see that this right hand is kind of usually in the armpit there, trying to prevent Fab from looking for underhooks and things like that. So now Graham has stood up. Fab's still trying to attack that far leg. Graham does a good job of pummeling his leg free from the half guard. An alternative method of passing for Graham in a spot like this could be a high step pass. So with Graham's left hand, he can use that on the top of or on the inside of Fab's shoulders to try and push Fab's shoulder to the mat. And then with Graham's right hand, he can take a C grip on the top of Fab's foot and start pushing it towards the ground. That way, we can look to lift our right knee towards our chest and step our right foot to the other side of the guard and go into some kind of reverse knee on belly type position. So that can be a good way of passing these standing positions here, particularly when our partner is trying to attach themselves to this far leg. So now Graham does a good job of kicking that right leg free. And then we end up in this position here where we're basically trying to solidify a side control position. We have options to circle around to the back, but because Fab is trying to turn in and his arms were extended towards this far leg to try and reach for them, that means that this top elbow is now kind of in front of Graham's chest. So Graham's got a good crossface here with that left hand. He's cupping the back of the head, and that is what allows him to start shooting this right hand through. So a couple of tips, we'll let this play out, but you can see that Graham's doing a really good job at sneaking that right hand through nice and deep and locking up his Das grip, and then starts to apply some pressure as he's looking to finish and kind of keeping Fab on his side. He starts to lean towards the head there, and that's what puts a lot of pressure on for the eventual tap. So if we go back to this position here where Graham starts hunting for the Das, a lot of people with shorter arms have a hard time shooting their arm through for the Das. But you can see that at the moment when Graham shoots that right hand through underneath Fab's neck, his right ear will be very close to the lat of Fab. So that allows him to really shoot that right hand through nice and deep. You can see how he's rotating his shoulders towards the chest there to make that right arm longer when it comes to sticking out the bottom of the neck. And this left hand always pulling Fab's chin towards his chest is a nice way of making that A, a shorter distance, and B, sort of making your partner less athletic while we're trying to lock it up. The other thing that Graham does really well here is even before he's completely locked it up, he's using that left elbow to continuously put pressure on the back of Fab's head, trying to tuck the chin towards the chest. So perhaps we could go to a gable grip here and really force that position, but if we feel like we can get it, then it's good to go straight towards our bicep. And Graham is doing a good job at always walking this left hand up high towards his shoulder. And what that does is it raises this bottom wrist, because the higher our left hand goes towards our face, the higher our bottom wrist will go into the underside of Fab's neck there. And when we're looking to finish the Das, it's good that we are walking towards the hips here, and it's good that we're keeping Fab on his side, especially while we're kind of still cinching up this Das. But then you can see the real finishing pressure comes when Graham starts leaning towards the head, because leaning towards the head starts to pull Fab's shoulder in towards his neck, and we were kind of in between finishing it from side control or more of a north-south orientation there, but both options are good. So we're starting off again in the mount. And you'll notice that most of these rounds start in a specific position, whether that's side control, mount, turtle, or closed guard. And that's just a way of avoiding any kind of awkward knee wrestling and positions which aren't really likely to occur. So you can see that Graham gets kipped off here, and we'll have a look at why. So when we are in mount, generally when our partner has their hands towards their chest, and it's difficult for us to get underneath the elbow. Going for a crossface can be a good idea, but if we are going for a crossface, we should actively work to set our crossface, which means reaching underneath Fab's head and trying to pull his head in the opposite or in the same direction that we are cross-facing from. And what that does is gets Fab's spine off the center line and creates a bend in the spine, and it also exposes this far elbow, because when the spine is bent, that elbow will be sticking out further away from the ribs and make it more available for Graham to get his right wrist underneath that leg. But this is a mistake I see a lot, which is feeling like we want to be connected when we're on top in mount and putting this chest to chest pressure down. It's not wrong, but what it does do is leave a lot of our weight on our hands and forwards over the top of our partner, and that can mean that our partner is able to kip quite easily because there isn't as much weight over the top of their hips, and their forearms are in a good position to start pushing our hips up. So as soon as we feel like we are in danger of being kipped, then a good thing to do is just posture up. So if we sit up completely vertically, then it'll be much harder for our partner to kip, and it will also give us a better angle to hand fight from. So if we're sitting upright, then we can use our hands on our partner's hands and start uncrossing them or separating them away from their body. In terms of defense against the kip, at a stage like this where we are definitely being kipped, if we can cross our ankles and try and keep our partner's knees together, then we can bring them to one side, and then we will still have kind of a Khabib style mount where we will have crossed ankles around our partner's legs, ideally above the knees, but even if we're below the knees, that's okay. And then we'll be able to figure out what we can do from there, whether that's dig for underhooks or go back towards mount. But Graham kind of wisely kicks off. If he was too late to cross the ankles and keep the knees together, then kicking off is a good way of preventing your partner from being able to isolate a leg and enter single X. So here, Graham's gone for that reverse collar tie again, and you can see quite mobile while he's passing, looking to circle around, and then we get into a position where Fab's doing a good job at framing and potentially turtling, and what is slowing Fab down here is Graham's right forearm sort of punching the mat and his forearm keeping those knees from coming towards the chest. So if Graham can circle around to a north-south position here, then that should be a good way of solidifying the pass. But when we start looking for this kind of overback position, it gets a little bit harder for us to prevent our partner from turtling. A good option for Graham here would be to step his left leg over the top of Fab's leg, so that even if Fab does turtle, at least Graham will have, Graham's right leg over the leg here, so that if Fab does manage to turtle, then Graham will have his right leg acting as a Casato hook, and that should give us a little bit more control of the turtle position. But Fab does a very good job of taking advantage of the fact that his hips were quite uncovered there and pops back up, and now Graham is looking for a Kimura grip over the top from the turtle. So this isn't necessarily wrong, but it does leave us without too much control when we start rolling for arm bars and things like this. So you can see Fab starts to roll out of that Kimura attempt, and then here Graham's doing a good job at circling to the back. Something that we can think about when we are attacking a front head position is we, in general, when we're attacking front head, it's common to kind of drill things while you're on your knees, but you can see that Fab's hips are already up and his elbows, there isn't a lot of weight on them. So if we're using our chin strap and our tricep grip to keep our partner down, we can pop our knees up off the mat and start driving our partner's butt back onto their heels to make them less mobile. And we can also keep the elbows on the ground a little bit more, which helps us attack front head. So it looks like Fab is doing a good job at fighting the hands here, and Graham goes to circle towards the back. Now, Graham has good chest pressure down on the back of Fab's shoulders, but something that could be improved upon is trying to get a knee behind the elbow before we circle to the back. Because if we don't do that, then it gives Fab the opportunity to reach out for our single leg here, or potentially just start keeping his elbows tucked in towards his hips, where it will be harder for us to then get that space. You can see that Graham is trying to get that right hand in as a rear body lock position, and it's difficult for Graham to do because Fab is able to keep his elbow not exactly back to his hips, but he's already preemptively standing up, and maybe that could be prevented by a little bit more pressure down while we're looking to transition from a front head attack to the back. So I'll leave this one here, but thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.